We are the Keyboard Samurai, a podcast focused on sharing insights to help those working in cybersecurity companies, be them technology or services. Each session, your host, Will Klusovsky, aka Will Clue, sits down with professionals in our industry to illuminate topics that will help your security biz, team, or self be better. Let's hack into it now.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Another exciting episode. I am thrilled to have Dom with us today. Dom, why don't you give everybody the 20-30 second spiel of who you are and why we're here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Dom Vogel. I live in Vancouver, Canada, all the way on the West Coast. I've been in cyber for 20 years. I've lived tale of two halves. First half of my career was corporate. Corporate choked me out, and I tapped out, and I became an entrepreneur. Over the past 10 years, I've been focusing my areas in a couple of focal points. One is fractional CISO, mainly for manufacturing companies and smaller organizations out in Western Canada, Western US. I do a lot of speaking as well, touring North America, giving my leadership talks to mainly technical crowds, and I do a lot of leadership coaching as well, again, mainly for tech executives who struggle to be human.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, so our listeners are going to be pretty dialed in today because we have a pretty similar, I also run my mouth a lot around the country, aside from having done this for decades as well. So, and so it's cool the way that we met. I want to tell everybody, because a mutual friend of ours, a coworker of mine, a friend of mine, mentioned that he met you at a, was it a B-Sides event?
It was B-Sides NOLA in New Orleans.
Yeah. and he's like, Don, this guy's doing, Derek talks about mental health and you were talking about kindness. And I was like, that's kind of one of my pillars too, that I used to be a pretty angry person in my past. I'm not ashamed to say that. I've learned that that's pretty much a waste of energy these days. And so for me, being able to talk about kindness and empathy, authenticity, and being a real person, that's exciting to me, and I think it's something beneficial to everybody. So I guess let's start with the obvious question. How did that topic, or the topic that we're talking about today, how did that become something that you were passionate about and something that you had to go out and start telling other people to do?
I really appreciate that question. I think you can probably appreciate the answer I'm going to give you. Growing up in industry, one of the things that I really noticed was that there was no shortage of managers or micromanagers in our field, but there's a huge shortage of leaders. And by leaders, I mean people who are actually capable of leading people. And again, it's often because, and I truly believe in cyber and IT from a bigger perspective as well, we overemphasize the technical skills, right? You got to have all these tech skills, right? Oh, the great leaders, they know how to use all the tools and all that stuff. Very rarely do we actually develop people as leaders. Very rarely do we develop people as people in this field, right? When in our field, if you're measuring someone's worth, oh, look how many certifications they have in their email byline. Oh, yes, he has 25 certifications. He must know what he's doing. Must be a great leader, right? I started to observe that. I noticed that these technical leaders in the space were not leaders, right? They were lacking in what I felt were basic human traits, right? And so as I became an entrepreneur and I started leaning more into what I call the human side of security, and I don't mean security awareness, but the true human side of being a human, I recognized that I just started, like I said, learning more about the people side. Then I dived more into leadership, and I've always loved that part even before I even got into this field. And so I started assessing that more. And like I said, that's my talk. One of my talks I love giving to security crowds is around how to unleash your inner leader. I truly believe we're all leaders inside. We have that capability. It's just, especially in the cyber field, we don't do enough to nurture and bring that out.
I love that, because selfishly it validates some of the things that I do. Because when I go and do presentations because I do specific stuff on how to advance your career in tech and cyber, because like you said, everything is focused on, oh, you're this person is really, really smart and they're the best person at their job, so they must be the person to make a manager. And then we do a pretty crappy job of teaching them how to be a manager. And that's one of the things the first thing I talk about is two things you have to do. You have to learn the business, because the business doesn't actually care about the technology or the security. and two, like, you have to realize you're no longer the technical expert. It's your job to, get your team what they need and get the hell out of the way. So thank you for that validation, Dom. I appreciate that.
Hey, happy to validate on the Friday.
So how did, like, like, to me, that's an obvious thing to recognize. Well, I'm not going to say obvious, but like, I can see how you got to that point. So then how do you get to where you are now, where you've got like domain expertise on this and coaching people, and like you, did you just, read a bunch of encyclopedias about it? Did you go get a psychology degree? Like, how did you get smarter on this so that you could actually help other people do it?
To me, and I'll put it this way. Well, to me, it's about when I burned out in corporate, I became deeply in tune with I'll just say human side, right? A lot of these things that I never had the time to explore. Corporate, I ruthlessly prioritized all these things that I thought I needed to succeed in corporate, which were not good for my soul. Let's put it that way. And afterwards, I started, like I said, understanding and looking at things in terms of what does it mean to be authentic? What does it mean to be vulnerable? What does it mean to be actually kind? And kind is different than niceness. And what does it mean to be empathetic, right? And to me, these were my basic building blocks I started focusing on, right? And really immersing myself in. And as I developed that, also my own capabilities and skill set with that, I started to realize, these are things that I can help other people with, whether it be senior leaders who are seemingly lost in terms of how to inspire or lead a team. Maybe it's people who are new into the field and are feeling lost, right? So it's something, like I said, it's just really sharing my journey, things I've learned along the way, right? That to me is where my expertise has come in. Do I have coaching certifications or all that? No, I don't, right? And sort of the way I approach things is that, and I'm focusing specifically on coaching in cyber, right? I'm not trying to coach, CEOs or marketing teams or what have you. Is because, again, whatever these cyber teams are feeling, they're doing, going through, I know exactly what they're feeling through, right? Exactly. All I'm doing is trying to add a human element to it and say, here's how we go next level, right? All the burnout stuff you're feeling, here's how we're going to transform that, right? So that to me is, for lack of a better term, that's my secret sauce.
Right. Well, and it's great because I think, that's, I think that's something everybody can take away is, like, all of us who do any kind of training or mentoring or education at one point or another knew nothing about what we teach people. and it's something that I kind of talk about all the time, which is just go and do it. Like, at the instant you started learning about it, you became exponentially smarter than somebody who knew nothing, and you were immediately qualified to teach them, right? to some degree, right? Degree. This is not financial advice, right? But it's like, I have a friend who's in psychology, and I always ask him about, like, therapists and psychologists. They have usually just as many problems as their clients. They've just learned how to deal with them, right? And so now they're passing that along.
Exactly, Will. And I, early on during as an entrepreneur, I've had various reimaginations as well. Where I've been focusing my efforts, and when I started doing more of the leadership and the coaching and the speaking specifically around that human side of things, I was having doubt about myself. And then I realized, and one of my friends said, you know what, there's so many life coaches that are under the age of 25. you can do this, Dom. If people are hiring life coaches who haven't crossed the age of 25, then you can do this. I was like, you know what? Damn it, I can.
That's brilliant. It's the same thing with executives who, not to say that you can't succeed early in life, but I'm a sales executive with 3 years of experience. I'm like, well, come on.
Yeah. Something doesn't add up there.
Something's entitled. It's all good. So you mentioned kindness versus niceness. I want to dig into that. So, like, tell us the difference.
Yeah, you know what? And kindness is rooted in authenticity, right? You can't be kind if it's lacking in authenticity, right? Niceness is a I don't know, maybe explain kindness more. To me, kindness starts by being kind to yourself and being authentic to yourself. You cannot bring kindness outward if you haven't had an opportunity to really hone your kindness inward. And I'll give the example of like giving feedback on a presentation, right? Let's say you're a manager, director, what have you, and one of your direct reports is giving a presentation. Niceness is saying, "Oh yeah, that was really good. Sam, you did a really good job there. No, I thought it was awesome." Right? That's niceness. You're not providing any value, and you're not being authentic, right? Because Sam kind of missed the boat on a couple of things. Kindness being able to say, "Sam, you know what? I thought the content was really good. You started off with some good energy, but you tailed off. And I started losing interest. Here's where I think you can do better next time. I know you can do it, right? You have an awesome work ethic, but I'd love to see you be able to take that next level." That's giving feedback from a kindness perspective, right? Kindness is rooted in authenticity. Niceness is also rooted in levels of toxicity.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's a great point, because like as you were talking, I started to think about being nice is like being polite, right?
Yes.
And it's like and we nobody wants to be rude, but you can be polite and mean at the same time. Like the bless your hearts, right? For those of you in the South, understand what I'm talking about. Like that's the nice way of saying you're an idiot. So yeah, that's genuinely I can appreciate that the kindness like has to come from yourself, because like that's my personal journey, same kind of thing. Like I had to look at how I was reacting to things and how I was dealing with things. It's very hard to be kind to people and authentic when you don't know who you are yourself, right?
Yes, very true. So
what do you recommend for others, like to find that authenticity, to be able to find that kindness and work at it?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So to me, when I burned out in corporate, I undertook what I now refer to as an audit assumption, right? And it's an exercise I do every year. I write down everything that I assume about myself to be true, right? Whether those were self-imposed beliefs, things that society's told me to believe, or what have you. So when I burned out in corporate, I wrote out things such as, I only know how to do cybersecurity. I'm introverted. I'm not comfortable building relationships. I enjoy doing technical things more so than strategic. All these things that at that point in time I assumed to be true. And what I did was I actively challenged each and every one of them, right? And in doing so, it allowed me to tap into a more authentic / what I now call truer version of myself. Does this happen overnight? No, I'd argue it's continuous, right? But when you do that and you start wiring your brain that way, you put yourself on that path where you're continually moving towards it, like I said, a truer version of oneself. And when you're doing that and you're on that path, that's where authenticity starts to shine and starts to come out, right? So to me, like I said, starting off with that audit assumption is something that I always tell, and it's one of my exercises I always do with my coaching clients as well, right? Because to me, that starts a level of introspection, right? And once you're able to look inwards, right? Again, these are muscle memory things that allow you to start building out that authenticity.
So not to get too much free consulting from you, but does that like, should those things be stuff you want to change? Or should you just
not necessarily?
Okay.
No, yeah, it's and it's about building comfortableness in uncomfortable areas, right? So, as an example,
embrace the suck, as Derek and I would say.
yeah, that's true, exactly. So for me, growing up, and even in my first 10 years in corporate, I always assumed myself to be introverted. Why? Well, my mom, bless her heart, always introduced me when I was little as, Dom's really shy. Dom's really shy. Dom's really shy. I just assumed that to be true. And maybe when I was little, I was, but she always said it, so I never broke out of that. So that was something I always thought I was introverted. Turns out I'm not. I actually really enjoy building relationships. I actually can't shut up until someone tells me to shut up. So I actively challenged that one. That one changed, right? Same thing with sales and marketing, right? Things that didn't change. I've always been I like to think a kind person at heart, right? So that was when I was thinking about, am I nice or am I being kind, right? So I challenged that, and I found no, I am actually a kind person. I'm not just being fake nice to people. So the notion again with these assumptions is it's not about trying to change who you are necessarily, but it's trying to at least help you explore what I call different dimensions about oneself, right? So corporate me looked very different than the version you're talking to now, Will. And this version of me is much more aligned with, I believe, my truest version compared to corporate me, right? And that's what sort of the exercise is about.
That I think is very powerful because I think a lot of us have a corporate version of ourselves and a real version.
Yeah,
and
mine's
I
dead
think,
and buried in my backyard.
Yeah. And that's what I was getting at. Like I can understand like dialing some things back because like, you know, there are things that I could say or enjoy doing that like don't add value or are going to be, you know, I'm not going to, it would be inappropriate, right? Because you're not going to let everything out. But
No.
at the same time, you shouldn't change who you are. You shouldn't have like a Jekyll and Hyde personality and be like different. And it's interesting because I think about, I'll go off on a tangent here. When I was in the Marine Corps, that was a specific thing. Like drill instructors, they're not like when they go to work, they become a different person. They have to turn into this mean, evil thing that's going to mold, you know, young teenagers and 20 somethings into these, you know, great people. And then they would literally talk about like they get home and they need like an hour to like decompress and change and become a different person. And that's, you know, that's something in the Marine Corps you do for 3 years, maybe, to live your life having to decompress and become a different person every day. That's got to be bad and stressful, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. You know, and you know, and that's what, to that degree, you know, corporate me, and it's something that I hear a lot with people that I coach, is that my corporate mask was eating away at who I was. And one of the stories that I was actually in my leadership talk is I started to feel my what I call my internal motivational flicker, like it was flickering. It was going off and on, off and on. And I remember when I was sitting in my office and I was looking at my colleagues at the time, I could tell who was, and it's a term I've now referred to as a corporate gargoyle. Someone who was physically there, but they were stone. Like there was no motivation, there was no light or fire in there, right? They were completely dead inside, from a corp, you know, from that perspective, right? They were just going through the motions. And in my talk, and this is a true story, I went later that night to watch one of the Batman movies during the Christian Bale, Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy.
The best one.
And I believe I think it was the Dark Knight one. I always forget which one it was, but it was a line when Harvey Dent, who was foreshadowing what was going to happen to him, when he said, "You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain." And I had this out of body experience when I was in the movie theater, and it may have been induced because I was choking on popcorn. But I remember I was brought back to the corporate office, and I was like, I could see myself losing who I was, right? And I kid you not, the following day I quit. And I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. My CIO was like, "Sorry, you quit because you saw a Batman movie?" I'm not following. Right. But
Great movie.
Batman saved my life. Like I said, it put me in a path, and it allowed me to become, like I said, a truer version of myself, and it allowed me to take that corporate mask off, because in the weeks and months leading up to this, I was burning out, right? So it wasn't a totally spur of the moment decision, and my wife had been telling me, "I don't recognize you when you come home. You're cynical, you're jaded, right? You're not you." Right. And there was no decompression period for me, because for me, I couldn't reconcile. There was two personas, right? It was
you thought it was you.
The corporate one was slowly eating away at me, right? And there was only going to be one persona left at the end of the day, right? So that's why, like I said, that corporate me is buried. I whacked him over the head with a shovel, and he's buried in my backyard, never to see the light of day ever again.
I think that is great for especially those younger in the industry, not necessarily age, but like getting into this or any stressful world, is like realizing because we spend so much of our lives at work and
your identity gets wrapped up in it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because I remember talking to somebody definitely from the Nordics, because they have such a chill lifestyle, right?
They
and
do.
Their approach to life is just very different.
Yeah.
And like in America, or probably in Canada too, I've actually never been, but like if you ask somebody what they do, they usually answer with their job, and then they start telling you about their work. But in other countries, like in the Nordics area, they'll tell you about their hobbies. They like gardening and doing other things, which is way more healthy.
Yes. Yep.
So, the other thing too, I think I'll give give you some marketing for free. I think Batman Saved My Life T-shirts for your brand would be great.
That's a good idea.
People can ask about it, and then you get to tell that story, and then you get to book more gigs. So
I like that idea.
So now I'm going to ask you like one last question here before I let you kind of talk about where people can find you. But like, so in your talks, in your coaching, like all of this stuff that you do collectively, like, here in the last couple minutes, what's something that you want? What's something you normally would give away or tell people or inform of? What's something that you can kind of leave everybody with here that they can kind of take action on or need to think about?
I'll say the thing I bring this back to is that it's not about just developing you as a person, right? Like to me, it's around the power of a brand, right? Whether you as a person or your team, whether it's an IT team or cyber team or what have you, it has a brand. And for most organizations, the brand of IT, brand of cyber sucks, right? So if you feel like as a leader, hey, I'm not getting attention from my executive peers, or everyone hates us, or it's IT versus the business, it can be tied back to a brand, right? And one of the best ways to burnish that brand and really make that brand pop is by, again, developing your people as people, right? Having them get the CISSP or other certs, that's not going to do anything for making your brand stronger. Developing them as people, helping them harness their people skills, their human skills, like we're talking about, empathy, kindness, better communication, being able to have emotional connections with their non-IT colleagues. That's how you build the brand, right? I have case study after case study of organizations I've helped, whether it be the help desk or what have you. And when the brand goes higher because you've invested in your people as people, you as a leader, all of a sudden doors start opening, people start listening to you. So it's more than just, it's not fluffy voodoo stuff, right? If you truly want to further your career from a personal perspective, or have more influence in what you're doing at work, this is how you do it. Invest in your people as people.
That's outstanding. Culture first, become a human. I love it. So Dom, where can people find you on the interwebs if they want to come look for you?
Well, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. If you look me up, Dominic Vogel. I'm the only English-speaking Dominic Vogel. Is one in Germany, but he doesn't speak English. And he's on in this field. But look me up on LinkedIn. Reach out to me there, or you can connect with me on my website. It's vogelleadershipcoaching.com. And again, all my stories and stuff are there. You can connect with me there. But I really appreciate everyone hearing me out. And Will, thank you so much for having me on this show. This was awesome.
It has been a pleasure, and I think we'll probably talk again a lot more soon. So
let's do it.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks for enjoying Keyboard Samurai Podcast. If you'd like to engage, find Will on LinkedIn at /WillClue or visit at willclue.me. That's WILKLU.me for more info. Disconnecting now. Synac you later.